Alright, let's talk about shortcuts and how we can create them. Alright, so to start off, I'm just going to apologize if I sound a little different. I've been sore throat, coughing all week, but we got to get something out. Saturday, waited as long as I could, Friday night. But these shortcuts, what are they? How do they work? Well, to set this up, I have my control where I'm going to show you how to set up custom ones. And I have a button in the scene, which is going to show you exactly how it works for things such as buttons that are already have a shortcut option within the inspector. And the thing you're seeing at the bottom of the screen it's a program called KMP. And as I press buttons, you can see it's all going to relate. Here we go. So what you would expect down there. That's not what I want. I want this. And maybe we'll make that bigger so people can actually, I guess, quote unquote, actually see. Hopefully that's not going to be blocking anything. I was going to move it over, but I think that's going to block something in the inspector if I did that. So we'll leave it at that. You can see though, every time I left click, right click, and any button on the keyboard here. Right. So you'll know that I'm pressing a button. There's no way we can deny what's going on. So let's go. So we're going to jump into my button. Here it is. It just says press me. And for the toggle mode, I went ahead and just turned that on just so we can get an idea of everything going on. I put a script on it and I connected all my signals to it, toggled, pressed, button up, button down. And all those are doing is they're just printing out for us. So we can see pressed, up, down, and toggle. So we know what signals are being triggered here. So let's go ahead and run this. And here we go. So we can kind of ignore this. I'm going to go ahead and click on this button. And if we take a look down at the output, we can see we have down, up, toggled, and pressed. And I'm going to click down. All we have is down. And when I release my mouse, we got toggled, pressed, and up. So we can see 3 of them are triggering when I release my mouse button. And down is the only one that is triggering when I click the mouse button. Alright, so we can see all of these are going to trigger. All these signals are going to trigger when we're clicking this button. Alright, so that's good. Good to know here. So let's go in and we'll go to our button. And if we scroll on down, we'll find a shortcut section here about on my side, roughly about halfway down. Hopefully I remember to actually zoom in on this. Well, we're going to see an option called shortcut. It's going to be empty. We click on that and we select new shortcut. From there, we'll get a property called events. That is an array of input events. Open that up. We're going to add an element. And you can add as many as you want. We're only going to add one because I don't know why you would need more than one, but maybe you do. So for this first element here, I'm going to set this as an input event key and open that up. And now we can see all of our options in here. So I can come in here and I can be like, oh, key code 61, right? Come on down. We'll set control to be pressed so that you have to hold control as well as like a modifier. But if you don't want to deal with any of that, you can just hit the configure button and you'll get this very familiar looking input events. The same thing that we use in the input mapper. So if I just press A on my keyboard, we can see we have A here. And I can just toggle or check off the control option here. So now control has to be pressed and I'm pressing the A key. And I'll go ahead and hit OK. So then all that information gets filled in for me. Now in my case, I'm going to be doing a separate one with A. So I'm going to use S for this, for my button here. And let's take a look at what happens. So we know everything toggles when we press the button with our mouse. All right, all 3 of them toggle. Fantastic. Now, what if I hit control? Nothing. S. Well, hitting S, we seem to be getting toggled and pressed. Interesting that Oh, I see. Control actually didn't stick on the inspector, or maybe I unchecked it without noticing when I changed the character. There we go. So I just changed it, put control press to be on again. And I'll go ahead and restart that. And that'll take just a moment. And it's up. And we see now when I hit S, it's not going. So I guess I unchecked control without seeing. I hit control, nothing. S, nothing. I guess you guys can see that when I double tap control. But there you go. But if I hit control and S at the same time, we can see in the output down there, we get toggled and pressed as the two things that trigger. So we can see all of the signals trigger when we use our mouse. But if we use the shortcut, we're only going to have toggled and pressed as our triggered signals off of that. So if you're using button down or button up, then you won't really be able to create these or use this built-in shortcut. Now, if you're doing this on your own with a custom shortcut, then obviously you can have your shortcut set up, and you can have it set so you can just call all of your functions or one of your functions. Any of your functions doesn't really matter, since presumably all these would be doing the same thing. So if you didn't have button up working, yeah. So if I jump into my control, we can actually take a look at creating a custom one. So you can see I have a custom one in the inspector. I call it a custom shortcut, and I can just open it, new input event key, and I just have one. Obviously, because that's all I need. If you wanted to have it just like the other one, you can make the type, right, cast it as a shortcut, whereas mine's just cast straight as an input event key. Cause again, I don't know why you would need more than one. And I can come in, go to configure, A, toggle control, hit OK. Now I have to press A and control, and my options are going to trigger. So if I were to go ahead and run this, just give it a moment, and I run that. Whoops, that's S, not an A. So we can see with what I've got set up, from when it matches, I'm getting match found printed out to us. Fantastic. And you see it's not any harder than setting it up as if it was a default shortcut that already came with the node. So if you want to set things up like that, you can. Now I'm going to go ahead and reset that to being empty, and I'm going to show you how we can go and create this shortcut through code. Alright, so if we go into our script, we can see export variable. I called it custom shortcut. I made an input event key. Now, if you did make this a shortcut, then you'd probably have to get item 0, because it is going to give you an array, remember? So when it comes to checking and comparing things, just keep that in mind. And let's remove all this space and bring this up. So we see inside of our ready function here, we have, go ahead, I'm taking my custom shortcut variable. I'm setting the key code to key A, and I'm setting control press to true. So this means that I have to be holding control and pressing A. So those are my two requirements here of my custom shortcut. And if we were to go into it, right, custom shortcut dot, and we can see a ton of things. So we can see we can get the key code as a text, the key label, the physical key code. We can have echo turned on or off, so we can toggle that. And we can see we can get it with the modifier. So if we just want to get some information out of it, the label, the physical, all this information, go ahead and check, no problem. Now, in order to check and compare this, we're going to go into our underscore input function, which is built in with the engine. And by default, there's an input event. And we want to check if event is an input event key. Remember, because that's what we're using for our custom shortcut. And if it is, then we're going to create a variable called key event. And that is going to be set to our event, casted as an input event key. Which, if it is an input event key, it should be. So we're just kind of making sure, and just casting that to our own thing here. And we're going to use that to check. So if key event.keycode, so we're going to check if the key code matches our shortcut key code, and if our key events control pressed is equal to our shortcuts control pressed, then we'll move on to our print. Also, just side note, if you guys didn't know, if you surround your if condition with parentheses, you can actually split it into multiple lines like this. Just a little nicer to read, as opposed to something like this where it just keeps going and running way off the page. So basically, we're gonna take a look at this. We have our we have our event coming in. If it's an input event key, then we're gonna create our variable and assign it, and we're gonna check the key go. So if the A button is being pressed, and whether or not control is being pressed, which in our case we need it to be pressed to trigger. So if we're pressing control as well, then our print is going to be triggered here for match found. And if we were to run that, we could see that that's exactly what happens here inside of our input event. And whoops, again, I'm hitting S instead of A. I don't know why I have this habit. So we see match found, and we can see it's constantly printing out there. All right, and that multiple responses there where it just keeps spamming into the output there, that's actually coming from this thing called echo. And by default, that is false, but once you press the button, that is going to become true after a second. And this is basically indicating that the button is being held down, right? Being pressed. So there are ways that you can get around doing that. I can leave that up to you guys to decide what kind of method you want to go about doing that. But there you go. There's how you create your custom shortcut keys, both in the inspector and through code. And you can see in doing the ones through the inspector, it only triggers certain signals. So just make sure that works for what you're doing. And if you're doing it through code, there's an idea of how you can go ahead and do a check in code to see whatever it is that you want to trigger when you press that shortcut key. All right, that's it. That'll do it. Take care. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you guys next week with another one.